Well, here's another video of me talking about the importance of recovery, and I'm not going to make any apology for that because I believe wholeheartedly that repeating things that are true is a good thing to do. And so this is true. And so if you've heard this before, um, that's fine, isn't it? Let's reinforce the truth of it. So this is about recovery and how important it is. A friend of mine, Marshall, more than a friend, a partner in the endeavor of the strength group that we have on the Facebook, um, wrote a post this morning about recovery, and he said a couple things in it that I would like to reiterate because of how true they are. And the first thing was he mentioned using the term recovery as he thinks of it. It's not a noun, but a verb. Recovery as an active thing to do. I like that a lot because it highlights and brings to bear the concept that if you just go and work out and go home and go about your business and your actions of recovery are nothing more than going about your business and waiting until it's time to train again. That's a fairly passive view and program that you've put yourself on for recovery. That's not an active program of recovery. It's very passive. You're just waiting till it's time to go back to the gym and hit that muscle group again. And so he talks about some things that we agree on about the active steps to take in planning the actions that you have to take to ensure that you get full recovery. Now, that's not so important when you first start out. You don't have to do much because you're not training that hard. But as time goes on, you start to train harder and harder. And if you're very consistent, you notice that the weights go up and up and up. 25-pound dumbbells become 35-pound dumbbells, then 45-pound dumbbells, and 55-pound dumbbells, etc. That's the point of weight training. So it's sort of foolish to think that the same plan of recovery that I used when I trained with the 25-pound dumbbells is also adequate when I use the 55s or 65s or 75-pound dumbbells. If there has been a steady increase in my workload in the gym, which is what we all want, and there hasn't been a steady increase in my recovery plans and active things that I'm going to do, there's an obvious mismatch there. That's clear to think that that's not going to work too well too long, just waiting around, because there is plenty of gains to be had. There are plenty of gains to be had by just waiting around when the workout is fairly light, fairly low intensity. But the more time you spend in the gym, the more you learn to push yourself harder and harder, and the heavier and heavier the weights grow. And at some point, you have to begin to take seriously the act, the verb, as he says, of recovery. You got to do something. And he outlines, and I've made multiple videos and articles about the importance of what you should be doing. But I like the concept that you need to let go of this attitude of recovery as just something that happens while you're waiting around. It happens by itself. You wait for it to happen. You feel about ready to go back in. The soreness is gone. I don't know what markers you use, but that's really not. It's not going to last too long if you're training hard and if you're serious. And I'm sure that if you're watching this, you're pretty serious. So I just want to reinforce the idea of taking the idea of recovery not as something that happens to you during the times that you are not in the gym hitting your workout, lifting your weights, doing your program. But that your program is extended past the end of the workout, and the program also includes the acts that you need to be doing, verb again, to cause recovery to increase as you're training harder and heavier and heavier. So I think that's a super, super important way to look at it. As I'm going to actively lift weights, and I'm going to actively do things to recover from lifting weights so that I get paid in full for all the work that I did. Because if you don't take this seriously, and if you don't do all the things you should be doing to make sure that you get your full pay when you leave the gym and when the recovery process is ensuing, you won't. You'll cut it short. You'll still make progress. You can still make progress getting 80% or 85% or even 90% of what is owed you from your hard work. But why in the world would you accept 85, 90, or 95% of the gains you could be getting for the work that you had done if you would just recover properly? If you only recover 95%, that's what you get. 80%, that's what you get. 70%, you're still making progress. So you can fool yourself that my recovery's just fine. I'm doing fine. And perhaps that's part of the problem. That we accept a lesser percentage of the gains we could have had for the same amount of work because we don't know that there was more on the table. And the only way to make sure that you get paid everything is to do everything you're supposed to, as we've outlined in some of the recovery articles. And it only makes sense if you really care about these things that you would start to care about your recovery actions. And there you go. So I'm glad you listened to this, and you can look at our YouTube stuff at JM 7th Level. You could look at Marshall, his writings on his Instagram at @marshalllee.strong, and mine at JM Blakely. So I hope you pursue this, and I hope you take your recovery serious as a verb, that you're going to do some things to aid your recovery. Thanks for listening.